की जाय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जाय, नामाचार्य श्रील हरिदास ठाकुर की जाय, श्रीम सुखो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद, श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवास हरिगौर भक्त वृंद की जाय, श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की जाय, श्री वृंदावन धाम की जाय, मायापुर धाम की जाय, जगन्नाथपुरी की जाय, गंगामयी की जाय, जमुनामयी की जाय, तुलसी महारानी की जाय, भक्ति देवी की जाय, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. We'd like to welcome, for the first time in so many years, Yatra has come from China, and they've come to take part in the Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita class tonight. So there'll be a little translation noise in the background. We're continuing volume 3, and now, finally, last week we left Srila Prabhupada at the airport in New York. He didn't even get on the plane yet. So we'll start from there. He's in the lounge, just outside of the cocktail lounge in the New York airport. And the devotees are all sitting at his feet, and they're crying, and they're wondering if they'll ever see him again. And Hansaduta and his wife Himavati, they joined in New York and went to help open the temple in Montreal for Srila Prabhupada. And they were there in the group. Hansaduta, I was sitting right next to Swamiji, and all the time I was thinking, oh, my spiritual master is going to India. And he said, I want to die in Vrindavan. We all knew Swamiji was going, but now it was the last moment. I was also seeing that I hadn't done anything for my spiritual master. He doesn't even know who I am, I thought. There's no relationship. I must do something. I must do something now. I must serve him in some way which will establish some place in his heart. Something, I was thinking. What can I do? I was crying, and he didn't even look at me. It was like I wasn't even there, just like a chair or something. Oh, goodness. Uh-oh. कहाँ गया? इधर है. Magnet. अच्छा, क्योंकि दोनों मैग्नेट है तो sorry. He was just always looking around and everything, and I was trying to catch his eye. If all of a sudden he would say something. The kirtan was getting heavier and heavier, and so was the crying. And the people in the waiting room were just looking at Swamiji like he was someone very special. And in the middle of it all, Swamiji was completely relaxed, as if this were his place, and this was just a normal thing to do. He's in the middle of an airport, a terminal. When the record ended, because what had happened was Kirtanananda, who was going along with Srila Prabhupada, he had brought a portable record player. And at that time they had one record, the Krishna Consciousness Happening record. And his idea was that he would play that on the portable record player. So Prabhupada had it play it very softly at first in the terminal, but then he had it the volume raised, and then soon all the devotees were singing along with the record. So when the record ended, Hansaduta asked, Swamiji, can I take a collection? Prabhupada nodded. Hansaduta stood and made a little speech. Our mission is to spread Krishna consciousness. We have a temple in New York. We are always badly in need of money. Please help us. Borrowing a hat from a soldier, Hansaduta went around taking a collection. Our traveling is very auspiciously beginning, Prabhupada said. We had a nice kirtan and we had a nice collection. It is all Krishna's mercy. So in that way, Hansaduta was able to figure out how to get Prabhupada's attention. This would happen often in the, whenever Prabhupada would arrive somewhere or leave somewhere, hundreds of devotees would surround him. This is before all of the restrictions caused by terrorism. We were allowed right up to the gate with the people. So the devotees would all go with Prabhupada, and Prabhupada would be sitting there, and everyone would try to get Prabhupada's attention. I remember even myself, I would start distributing books to all the people. So Prabhupada would be very pleased seeing that. So Hansaduta's his plan worked, because then Prabhupada said that it was a very auspicious beginning, because now the collection had been made and the kirtan had been performed. Then it was time to board the plane. Prabhupada embraced each of his men. They stood in a line, and one after another approached him and embraced him. He patted a few of the women on the head. Rupanuga. Maybe some of you remember Rupanuga. We had heard about him in volume 2, how he was looking for Prabhupada and the devotees. He came to the Tompkins Square Park and joined in the kirtan. And although his wife and his little son was not very interested, his son's name was Eric at the time, he became Akendra, he was very interested. And he became initiated. His wife also became initiated, Kalindi. They did fantastic service for Srila Prabhupada. But now everything was new. Everyone was just contained within the 26 Second Avenue Temple. Some had gone to Los Angeles, some had gone to Montreal. Swamiji was embracing the men, Kirtanananda, Brahmananda, Gargamuni. I never expected that he would ask me to step forward. I didn't consider myself in the same category with the other devotees. So I was very much surprised when Swamiji motioned to me and spoke my name, Rupanuga. I got up and walked to Swamiji. It might have been 10 feet, but it seemed like a long distance. I embraced him, and that embrace was the most memorable embrace of my life. Right away, I noticed Srila Prabhupada's strength. He was so strong. It was like embracing a young man, a man my age. I was 27, and he seemed even stronger and younger than I. And he hugged me tightly, and I also embraced him very firmly. So when Srila Prabhupada would be departing somewhere, even when Prabhupada was here after the grand opening, and whenever Prabhupada would be leaving, everyone would crowd into Prabhupada's room, wherever he was, to see him for the last time. And normally we would make a big tray of some prasadam of some type, so that Prabhupada could call each devotee up. They would come one by one. He would hand out prasadam to them. And one time here, because just as Rupanuga, he was thinking, well, I'm a very junior devotee. Prabhupada's not going to want to hug me. He's not going to call me. But Prabhupada remembered him and called him and tightly embraced him. So also, one time I was sitting outside, I was thinking, oh, it's such a crowd in Prabhupada's room. I won't even be able to get near Srila Prabhupada to get a sweet. And then all of a sudden there's a big ruckus. One of the GBC comes out and he starts calling my name. He said, Prabhupada's calling you. So I go in through the crowd right up to Prabhupada and he hands me a sweet. So we may think that we're, Prabhupada doesn't know our name, he doesn't know who we are, nothing, but Prabhupada remembers us. And at these times of departure, these intimate times, he would call the devotees. He was smaller than me in stature, so I instinctively buried my chin in the hollow of his left shoulder. While I was embracing him, I felt very blissful, and I felt a light. I felt there was a light, something bright and pure, some kind of energy emanating from my face. I opened my eyes and I saw Kirtanananda watching. He was standing behind Swamiji a few feet away, and I looked right into his eyes. And I was so happy and blissful that it reflected in him somehow. He broke into a big smile at me, and his eyes were very bright. It was as if some spiritual energy was actually emanating from me. So you can imagine the scene. There's Srila Prabhupada, and he calls Rupanuga, and Rupanuga has his head on Prabhupada's shoulder, just here, and he's looking back, and just behind Prabhupada is Kirtanananda. And Rupanuga is in such bliss that when he looks at Kirtanananda, Kirtanananda automatically becomes blissful as well. That airport scene was a very important part of my life, because for me, a person who always had difficulty in loving another person, Swamiji's leaving forced out a lot of love from my heart I didn't even know was there. It's like becoming a spiritual person when you feel love really developing for the spiritual master. I was becoming a spiritual person. It was a tremendous outpouring of feelings of separation and grief at his departure. So this is how Prabhupada would draw the love out of the disciples. He said that he's not the type of person who loves easily, but just at the thought of separation from Srila Prabhupada, that love was becoming so strong within him. It was a tremendous outpouring of feelings of separation and grief at his departure, because we all knew he was our life and soul. And to a person, none of us were sure we would ever see him again. Because by this time, Srila Prabhupada, he had come out of the hospital. He had tried to recover in New Jersey at Long Beach. That was unsuccessful. There wasn't enough sun. Then he flew all the way to California. There wasn't enough sun there. So now he realized he needed to go back to India to get the treatment that he required for recovery. But he still wasn't well. And they didn't know if he would ever be able to return again. So this is a picture of them actually at the Air India terminal. You can see Kirtanananda in his woolen suit. And there's Hansaduta and his wife Himavati and Brahmananda behind Prabhupada. Accompanied by Kirtanananda, whose head was shaven and who wore an incongruous black woolen suit, Prabhupada walked slowly toward the gate. As he disappeared from view, the devotees ran for the observation deck to get a last look at his departing plane. A gentle rain was washing the airfield as the devotees raced across the wet observation deck. There below were Prabhupada and Kirtanananda walking towards their plane. Abandoning decorum, the devotees began to shout. Prabhupada turned and waved. He climbed the movable stairway, turning again at the top and raising his arms, and then entered the plane. So this was the last they saw of Prabhupada as he entered. The devotees chanted wildly while the boarding steps moved away. The door closed, and the plane began to turn. The devotees had pressed close to the rail, but they pulled back as the jet exhaust blasted them with heat. With a great roar, the Air India jet, lights blinking, taxied out to the runway. The devotees continued to chant Hare Krishna until the plane left the ground, became a speck in the sky, and then disappeared. So we're on the next chapter now. It's entitled India Revisited, Part 1. The plane did not go straight to India. The plane flew during the night and arrived in London by morning. Srila Prabhupada had planned a stopover. He checked into an airport hotel, took his massage, and rested. In the afternoon, he rose and bathed, and then he and Kirtanananda boarded their plane bound for New Delhi via Moscow. While the plane was still on the ground, however, a crew member announced a short delay due to health regulations. A passenger who had disembarked earlier that day was now sick, apparently with smallpox. So smallpox, by that, it was 1967. Smallpox had not been eradicated by that time yet, by the vaccination. So the plane would have to be thoroughly fumigated. Prabhupada and Kirtanananda stayed in a room at the Excelsior Hotel for the night. Now later we'll read, you see Prabhupada, every time he made a stop, he would write letters to the devotees in America. And those letters were kept. And we have those letters where Prabhupada explains to the devotees exactly what happened at this time. Early the next morning, July 24th, seated in his hotel room, complete with air conditioning and television, neither of which he used, Srila Prabhupada wrote a letter to Brahmananda in New York. So Prabhupada, he just reached London, didn't get out of London even. 16 hours he had to wait for the fumigation of the plane. 16 extra hours. So Prabhupada took the opportunity to write to Brahmananda, the temple president at 26 2nd Avenue. My dear Brahmananda, accept my blessings. I'm always thinking of your separation feelings. Please do your duty nicely and Krishna will help you in all respects. We are delayed here for 16 hours, starting this morning at 9 for Delhi. The attention of Mr. B.K. Nehru, the ambassador of India, was drawn to me the other day. I have told him about my permanent visa, and he has promised to help me when I come back. Please make an appointment with him, informing that I wish to present him our set of Bhagavatam and our other literatures. Then go to him and personally present the books, etc., at Washington, D.C. This is the ambassador for India. He wanted Brahmananda to... So already, Prabhupada, he hadn't even reached India yet. He was already making plans how he could return. It may be that I shall be coming back very soon as I feel some strength. Up to now, there was no disturbance about my health, and I hope to reach Delhi this night. I shall write you again after reaching Vrindavan. Convey my ardent affection and blessings for all the boys and girls. I am very much hopeful of my movement. Please keep steady. Follow all my instructions scrupulously. Chant Hare Krishna, and Krishna will give you all strength. Hope you are all doing well. I am yours, ever well-wisher. So, Prabhupada had been just 24 hours away from New York, but he saw how the devotees were feeling at the airport, such separation. So as soon as Prabhupada got an opportunity, he wrote to them to encourage them and to let them know that he had every intention of returning with a permanent visa. Prabhupada and Kirtanananda flew to Moscow. There they walked around the terminal, observing what Prabhupada called propaganda pictures. After a 1-hour stopover, they reboarded and flew another 8 hours, arriving in Delhi around midnight. So later Prabhupada wrote a letter describing in detail his stop-off in Russia. We'll hear about it. I'm including the letters. The letters are not included in the Prabhupada Lilamrita, but the letters are where Satsrup Maharaj took a lot of his information, summarized it, and put it into his book. But we'll get to read all the letters so then we get more details. The wall of heat that greeted them felt good to Prabhupada. He had come for this. Inside the airport terminal, overhead fans stirred the muggy air as Srila Prabhupada and Kirtanananda stood in slow-moving lines while uniformed officials tediously checked passports and immigration forms without Western-style computers or efficiency. Just behind the areas for immigration and customs, people waiting for arriving passengers were waving, calling, and coming together with friends and family members. So now any of you who have traveled abroad, we have the top class Indira Gandhi International Airport. It's won so many awards for how luxurious it is, how efficient it is. But that's not where Prabhupada landed. He landed at an airport named Palam Airport. And it was middle of July, before the rain started. Hottest time of the year. And just as explained here, it's a wall of heat that hits you. Now, most of you, like those of you from China, nobody comes here in the summertime. You don't want to come here because it's so very hot. And then after the summer comes the rains, which is a big inconvenience. But we arrived in July also. And the wall of heat that hits you when you walk off of the plane, it's not like now with everything is internalized and you have corridors and moving staircases and everything. Nothing. You walk off, the heat heats you, and then you go into it was a small airport, very small, just one box, that's all. And the immigration officers, middle of the night. So this was India in 1967. After Prabhupada and Kirtanananda claimed their luggage and cleared customs, they stood on the sidewalk outside the terminal. Although Prabhupada had removed his sweater, Kirtanananda stood sweltering in his black wool suit. It was 2 a.m. All around, passengers were meeting loved ones who embraced them, sometimes even garlanded them, and helped them into cars and taxis. But for Prabhupada, it was certainly different from the recent tearful airport scenes where he had been with his loved ones. Now, instead of being surrounded by loving disciples, Prabhupada was besieged by taxi drivers and porters wanting to carry his luggage for a fee. In Hindi, Prabhupada asked one of the drivers to take them to Chippiwada in Old Delhi. The driver put their luggage in the trunk, and Prabhupada and his disciple climbed into the back seat. So nowadays, we don't do that. You go to an agent, prepaid taxi, because once you get in that taxi, you don't know what's going to happen, where they're going to take you, how much they're going to charge, nothing. And that's exactly what happened to Srila Prabhupada. The small ambassador taxi drove through streets well known to Srila Prabhupada. Nighttime traffic was light, an occasional taxi or motor rickshaw. Mostly the streets were empty and quiet, and the shops closed, an occasional person or cow sleeping outdoors. Just a few years before, Prabhupada had sold back to Godhead magazines, solicited donations, and printed his Srimad Bhagavatams here. Because anyone who knows Old Delhi, there's Chandi Chowk, and then there's little side streets that go off of Chandi Chowk. So one of them is Chowdi Bazaar. Chowdi Bazaar is where all the the paper products, you get envelopes and paper reams and anything you need paper, you go to Chowdi Bazaar. And off of Chowdi Bazaar, on a little lane with poles so that vehicles couldn't even go in, that is Chippiwada, Paratawala Gully. So, Prabhupada knew the area very well, but it was the middle of the night, and he was at the mercy of the taxiwala. So I'm going to read it quickly because you'll get so much information here from Prabhupada's letters. Dear children at New York, please accept my blessings. We had a very nice plane ride here to New Delhi, although it took somewhat longer than we had anticipated. We arrived in London on schedule Sunday morning, and Kirtananda gave me a massage, and then I took shower, bath, and rested until afternoon. We boarded the plane for Moscow, and no more than we got in our seats when it was announced that due to health regulation, there would be a short delay. The delay, however, turned out to be some 16 hours. It seemed that someone on the plane, when it came into London, had smallpox. So the plane was quarantined until it could be thoroughly fumigated. So they put us up for the night in the Excelsior Hotel, which was something like a dream palace, complete with air conditioning, TV, hi-fi, swimming pool, and everything else. We had a nice meal and slept very nicely. We boarded the plane for the second time the next morning at 9 a.m. and took off for Moscow shortly thereafter, and arrived at that bastion of propaganda about 3 hours later. We had an hour's stop there, so we got off the plane just to take a walk. We were met by a friendly guard and informed that they would keep our passport in case anyone wanted to escape to Russia for some. They would keep our passport until we returned to the plane, and then guided down the corridor to the terminal. Unlike London or New York, there was no hustle or bustle at the terminal, nor were there many people, and it was very quiet. The only remarkable features were the propaganda pictures and the many racks of free books and literatures. We were glad to get back on the plane and start for Delhi. The flight from Moscow to Delhi took about 8 hours. And when we arrived, it was about midnight local time. And when we stepped out of the plane, I knew it was India. It was like walking into a solid wall of heat. But that's what I've been wanting, and it felt good to me. Some friends were there to meet us, so after clearing customs, we drove into town, where we stayed and are presently at a Radha Krishna temple near Kashmiri Gate. Today I have consulted with 2 Ayurvedic physicians, one of whom is famous in these quarters, and they conclude that my trouble is with my heart, but that all danger is past, and that I will be just fine, provided I follow simple regulative measures with my diet and work. I also have been given some medicine, so we shall see how Krishna desires. Tomorrow, Krishna willing, we will go to Vrindavan. Well, that didn't happen. Prabhupada had great dreams of going immediately to Vrindavan, but he fell sick. Where you can send mail to me. I have played the record a number of times here, and when they hear it, they think it is wonderful. I am very anxious, even more than ever, for our American house in Vrindavan. So Prabhupada very early, just after he had initiated for the second time the devotees, he envisioned that because now some of his students were becoming serious in Krishna consciousness and taking initiation, he would bring them back to Vrindavan and train them properly there as Vaishnavas. And his vision was to have what he called an American house. And he got his first donation from Satsvarup Maharaj. It was called the Rupanuga Vidya Pit. That's what Prabhupada called the American house. And he wanted to negotiate with the Radha Damodar Pujaris, the Goswamis, to take a parcel of their land and make the American house there. I always said that if I could get the American boys and girls to take up this movement, the rest of the world would join. Now my theory is being proved. So now I am depending on you all to carry on this great mission in my absence. Chant and hear, and Krishna will bless you. Your ever well-wisher, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. But India's leaders were rejecting Vedic culture and imitating the West. Although some Indians still professed to follow Vedic culture, mostly they were victims of hodgepodge teachers who didn't accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he had felt obliged to leave, to go and transplant the Vedic culture in the West. He had held strictly to the vision of his predecessor spiritual masters, and he had been proven right. The West was a very good field for Krishna consciousness. So here we have when Srila Prabhupada successfully brings back his World Sankirtan Party, and he holds, for 2 years, he held all over India, 1970, 1971, all over India in the major cities, Sankirtan programs. And the Indians, you can see them all sitting, very few have joined in the Kirtan. The Indians were so impressed by what Srila Prabhupada had done. And Srila Prabhupada explained it in a very nice analogy. He said that the Vedic culture is like a tree. But now they're not following their own Vedic culture. So if you want to cut down a tree, you take a piece of wood from the tree and you add a foreign element. So Prabhupada said that his foreign disciples were that foreign element whereby he was able to reinstate the whole Vedic culture. Because when the Indian followers of Vedic culture saw that the Westerners were accepting their culture that they were rejecting, then they would accept it back again because they wanted to follow whatever the West was doing. So now the West was accepting Vedic culture. As the taxi drove through Old Delhi and approached Chowdi Bazaar, this is Chowdi Bazaar. You can't move. On all sides, paper products, all kinds of things you can buy. This is what it looks like in the daytime. Prabhupada saw the printing and paper shops, now closed for the night. And the usual dense traffic of human-hauled carts was now absent, though some laborers were sleeping on their carts till the morning, when they would bathe in an outdoor well and begin another day's hauling. When Srila Prabhupada had been overseeing the publishing of his first volumes of Srimad Bhagavatam, he had daily walked these streets, buying paper, picking up proofs from the printer, returning with the corrected proofs. His first canto had been a triumph. So we also, before things became modernized in Delhi, anytime we wanted to buy paper or anything for Vrindavan, we would have to go to Chowdi Bazaar. And we would have to haggle with the different sellers and find who had the best price and the best quality, everything. It's exactly what Prabhupada had to do in order to print his first 3 volumes of Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is the corner of Chowdi Bazaar and Churdiwala Lane. Turning into this lane leads to OK Press. So this is another bazaar, another turn off of the Chowdi Bazaar, you go into Churdiwala. These places still exist, you can go and explore there anytime you like. Yes, so they arrived there. They got to Chippiwada Lane, and they got to the temple, and it was locked. As they pounded loudly, Prabhupada called out for Sri Krishna Pandit until a man came to the door, recognized Prabhupada, and let them in. The man showed them upstairs and unlocked the door to Prabhupada's room. Prabhupada turned on the light. This was Prabhupada's rooms. You can see the grill. That grill underneath is the temple room. So Prabhupada's rooms were part of the building that was built on the roof. And different tenants had some of these rooms next to Prabhupada. The room hadn't been opened since Prabhupada left 2 years ago. The room was bare and dusty, and the bulb hanging from the ceiling created stark light and shadows. On the floor was the 3-foot-high cement dome, indicating that directly below were the altar and the deities of Radha and Krishna. The dome prevented anyone from accidentally committing the offense of walking directly above the deities. The closet was stacked with printed Srimad Bhagavatam pages, Srimad Bhagavatam dust jackets, and form letters to prospective members of the League of Devotees. Everything was just as Prabhupada had left it. So this is Prabhupada's room, his little room, with the entrance there, and this is the dome where the deities are, and all of Prabhupada's belongings. A little table where Prabhupada used to cook on a hot plate. You can see where looks like kerosene underneath there, and Prabhupada's luggage and his folding beds. This is the room where I compiled Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada told Kirtanananda. I slept here, and over here was my cooker and my typewriter. I would sleep and type and cook and type and sleep and type. Kirtananda was shocked to think that Swamiji living here in such a poor, humble place. It wasn't even clean. Well, 2 years you can expect it wouldn't be clean. This is what the room looks like now, after they've taken over, ISKCON has acquired the temple, and they made everything first class. But the dome is still there, the original dome. Although Kirtanananda was uncomfortable in his suit and wondered when he would be able to get rid of it, he managed to get a thin mattress for Swamiji. 2 Ayurvedic doctors came. They both agreed that the trouble was Swamiji's heart, but that the danger was now past. They gave him medicines and advised him to keep a regulated schedule of eating, resting, and working. So hopefully now that Prabhupada was back in India and he didn't have to attend to all of his little children in America, he would get the opportunity to rest. Sri Krishna Pandit came by to sit and converse, and Prabhupada told him of his success in America and of all the young devotees in New York and San Francisco. Prabhupada played his record for Sri Krishna Pandit, and this grew a crowd of curious persons from other rooms in the temple. There were families living there that they rented out to make money for the temple, so they all came to hear the record. In the afternoon, Prabhupada developed a cough. It didn't seem serious, and he said he wanted to travel the next day to Vrindavan. But by evening, the cough had become persistent. He couldn't rest. We all know about the pollution in Delhi. It's severe, and 600, 800, never goes below 300. Well, it was just as bad then. So we can understand, just by Prabhupada coming to Delhi at that time, how it immediately affected him, because his system was already weak. Because in those days, they had no restrictions whatsoever. Kirtananda tried massages and the pills the Ayurvedic doctors had prescribed, but nothing worked. Prabhupada remained awake all night, and when Kirtananda touched him in the morning, he was feverish. The doctors came again. Prabhupada's temperature was over 104. They gave teas and Ayurvedic powders, while Kirtananda looked on skeptically. Because Prabhupada was having a lot of difficulty breathing when he lay down, Kirtananda thought it might be pneumonia. So Kirtananda gave him penicillin, of which he had brought a supply. In the afternoon, an elderly Sikh doctor who practiced Western medicine came by and gave Prabhupada a penicillin injection. Prabhupada then fell asleep and rested quietly for the first time in 24 hours. While Prabhupada slept, Kirtananda wrote a letter to his godbrothers in New York. Now, if anyone has the Veda base, you'll see that Prabhupada would write letters, and after Prabhupada would sign off, your ever well-wisher, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, there would be a footnote of Kirtananda to the devotees, his letter, in the same letter. And he would duplicate and triplicate that letter. Whenever Prabhupada wrote to San Francisco, Kirtananda's message would be there, the same message that he sent to New York, the same message that he sent to Montreal. I know you would like me to say straight out my opinion as to how he is, and that is not good. The outcome, as always, but now very apparently, is only in Krishna's hands. Please chant Hare Krishna. So this is Kirtananda's footnote. Please chant Hare Krishna, for that is the only thing that can save him. That is what saved him before, and that can do it again. I know that his task is not yet complete, and by Krishna's mercy, he can again be spared. Kirtananda also asked the New York devotees to call the devotees in San Francisco, Santa Fe, and Boston, and have them continue chanting for Swamiji's health. He reminded them to strictly follow all of Swamiji's instructions. So by that time, Subal had gone to Santa Fe to open a temple, and Satsvarup and Rairam had gone to Boston to open a temple and also start the ISKCON press there in Boston. Okay, now, this is another letter from Kirtananda, and I want to share it because you get more details that way. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga, dear Prabhus. I am writing again today, but not with the same heart. Yesterday, His Divine Grace developed a cough in the afternoon, which at the time I thought nothing of. But as the evening progressed, the cough got more persistent, and all night he got no rest. I tried to help him several times during the night, but neither massage nor the pills which we had were effective. This morning when I touched his body, it was ablaze. His temperature was over 103, and soon over 104, in which vicinity it has stayed all day. Several doctors, Ayurvedic, were consulted with the prescription of various teas, powders, potions, and whatnot. Meanwhile, I myself had diagnosed it as pneumonia due to the great difficulty in breathing, especially whenever he would lie down, and began giving some polycillin, that's penicillin pills, which we had brought. About noontime, one elderly Sikh gentleman who practices a version of Western art, meaning medicine, came by with a large injection of penicillin. Just now he is sleeping quietly, something which he could not do before, so at least that is an improvement. I know you would like me to say straight out my opinion as to how he is, and that is not good. And then this is what he wrote in the other. Now, because Kirtananda, he came from a family of his father was a Baptist minister, he starts to quote the Bible. They didn't know much of the Bhagavad Gita yet at that time. Okay, I request that you immediately, and then in parentheses, wait for night rates if you want. It's cheaper to call at night. Call the other centers and read this and the other letter to them, which I hope you receive at the same time. Just before getting sick, Swamiji requested that you send some stationery here, so you could send a few sheets for now to the Vrindavan address in case we need it. We'll write more tomorrow. Also make a copy of these letters and mail them to the other centers. The next day, Srila Prabhupada's fever was down to 100.6. He was still sick, but he talked again of going to Vrindavan. He dictated a letter to his book-selling agents in Delhi, Atmaram and Sons, asking them for an up-to-date account of their sales of his Srimad Bhagavatam. So while Prabhupada was away, someone named Mr. Chandrasekhar was receiving all of the money from the sales. There weren't that many sales. Unless Prabhupada would personally go and present the books. The books religious books were not big sellers. So Prabhupada wrote in this letter that do not give any more of the sales profits to Chandrasekhar. Instead, now that Prabhupada was back in India, it can go directly to him. Old acquaintances came by and were disappointed to find Swamiji unable to accept their invitations. Prabhupada asked that they invite Kirtanananda in his stead. So if you can remember from volume 1, when Srila Prabhupada lived at Chippiwada, many of the people who he met at that temple there and during his excursions for the printing and getting contributions and getting supporters for the League of Devotees, they would invite Prabhupada to hold house programs and regular classes on his Srimad Bhagavatam. So now that Prabhupada was back, they all wanted Prabhupada to come and continue as he did before. But he was in no condition to do so after his heart attack and now that he was suffering from this congestion. So instead he sent Kirtanananda. For several days, Kirtanananda visited the homes of these pious Hindus. He played the record on his portable phonograph, chanting along and dancing with his arms upraised. Then he would give a short speech. His hosts accepted him as a sadhu, fascinated that an American had taken so seriously to Krishna consciousness. On August 1st, after 6 days in Delhi, Prabhupada went to Vrindavan. Kirtanananda wrote back to New York, "My dear brothers and sisters, greetings in the name of Krishna from Vrindavan. Obviously, Swamiji is much better, especially after reaching Vrindavan. His eyes now have a special glow. We left Delhi yesterday, the 31st, morning on the Taj Express, and in 2 hours we're at Mathura. We rode special third class, and it was quite satisfactory, not at all crowded like the usual third class. Anyway, we are now here and are in the process of settling down. Swamiji has 2 very nice rooms, quite cool, just off the porch where the Bhagavatam is read. How appropriate." So this is Swamiji's nice room. A very standard charpai, and Prabhupada didn't even have a mattress. The devotees from Gaudiya Math, they provided Prabhupada with bedding when they saw how austerely Prabhupada was living, because Prabhupada would use every single paisa he got for his printing work. He didn't take care of himself properly when he was living at Radha Damodar Temple. The only difficulty on his behalf is that these Indians all want to see him, and they are very persistent, and I am not very successful in keeping them out. So here we have, as soon as Prabhupada got there, everyone wanted to come see Prabhupada, and it was Kirtanananda, he couldn't understand, how did they know that Prabhupada even arrived? But the news traveled so fast that here is, I forget his name now, the Goswami, Nirmal Chand was the son, and we'll get his name later, who lived just across on the other side of the temple. He came, they would bring Prabhupada some of the Rajbhog every day, and very wonderfully, Krishnadas Babaji, he came to see Srila Prabhupada immediately. Prabhupada's very dear godbrother and friend. So that's Krishnadas Babaji there. Vrindavan, seen materially, is a very beautiful place. The country is very flat, and there are many trees, monkeys, peacocks, and of course temples. It is also very poor. Both the people and the temples are in a bad state of disrepair. But spiritually considered, there are many great devotees here, and it is wonderful to walk down the streets and see tilaks all over the place, and people chanting on their beads. If I can develop a fraction of their devotion for Krishna, my life will be successful. It is all thrilling to hear the temple bells ringing so many times throughout the day. Last night I played our record for Lord Damodar here in the temple, and then performed kirtan with some of the local devotees. It was very nice, but you will be surprised, I think, when I say that I prefer your kirtan in New York. So this is the Radha Damodar temple deities. After Prabhupada had been in Vrindavan only one day, and his health had only slightly improved, he began planning his return to America. I am always thinking of you, he wrote to the devotees, whom he addressed as his dear students. I cannot stop my Western world activities, and I have taken leave from you only for 6 months, and it may be that on or before I will come to you again. Kirtananda says from my bodily feature that I am improving. I am also feeling like that. So this is a letter that Prabhupada wrote. He arrived on the 1st of August. He immediately wrote to the devotees on the 2nd of August. My dear students, please accept my blessings. I'm always thinking of you, and I'm feeling separation. I wish to return at the earliest opportunity. I cannot stop my Western world activities, and I have taken leave from you for only 6 months, and it may be that or on or before I will come to you again. So continue your activities with great vigor. I shall always pray to Krishna for your steady advance, but try to follow the principles which are necessary to strengthen oneself in the matter of spiritual advance. Never think that I am absent from you. Physical presence is not essential. Presence by message or hearing is real touch. Lord Krishna is present by his message, which was delivered 5,000 years ago. We feel always the presence of our past acharyas simply by their immutable instructions. I hope you will understand me right and do the needful. Kirtananda says from my bodily feature that I am improving. I am also feeling like that. Your ever well wisher. So that's why I'm putting these letters, because Satsvarupa Maharaj would just take 1 or 2 sentences, but the instructions that Prabhupada gave are so important in these letters. In Delhi, Prabhupada had received a letter from Brahmananda saying that Macmillan Company was definitely interested in publishing the Bhagavad Gita. In Vrindavan, Prabhupada wrote Brahmananda to sign a contract at once on his behalf. Prabhupada had been considering whether to print privately in Japan or India or to wait for Macmillan. He wasn't concerned with the prestige and financial advantages of publishing through Macmillan. His first concern was to print as quickly as possible. Now, even when Prabhupada was in America, he had sent money to India to start printing the 2nd canto. The money disappeared, and the book was never printed. So Prabhupada was having failures. Now, finally, Macmillan was ready to print Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, but not the whole thing, abridged. And that was all we had for 7 years, that abridged version, until they printed the full one, because that abridged version sold by the millions. So then they printed the full version. So here's the whole letter. Please accept my blessings. In continuation of yesterday's letter signed by Kirtananda, I may further inform you that Macmillan contract is very important. I have already confirmed the terms, and you are herewith authorized to sign on my behalf. If the contract is bona fide, then there is no need of printing the books at my responsibility, either in Japan or in India. I shall be satisfied with the commission and shall only be glad to see that the books are being read by hundreds and thousands of men. Whatever profit may be derived from it will be utilized for development of the American house here. By the way, we are living in, this is the American house that Prabhupada envisioned. Finally, he was able to get this temple. And he didn't mean it just for Americans, of course. He wanted all of his international followers to come here to Vrindavan and stay here. I would have been very glad if Hayagriva yourself and Rairam, along with Kirtananda, would have been present combinedly and give a start to the American house. Negotiations for the plot of land is going on, and as soon as it is settled, we shall begin work. Kirtananda is feeling the warmth of the city a little tediously. For me, this warmth is little bracy. Anyway, you try to fructify this contract, and it will be a great relief to me. We have already written to Hayagriva to return to New York and deliver the mass copy, manuscript, over to Macmillan. The balanced part of Gita Upanishad, which is being edited, should be finished as soon as possible, and wherever necessary, he may consult me by mail. The first 3 volumes of Srimad Bhagavatam, completing the first canto, may be published in 1 volume without the Sanskrit, i.e. only translation and purport. Similarly, we can publish the second canto in one volume, and so on, 1 volume per canto. So Prabhupada wanted to see his books printed anyway, anyhow. Prabhupada stayed in his old rooms at the Radha Damodar temple. Still incapacitated, he was being massaged and cared for by Kirtananda, who himself was listless and tired from the heat. But Prabhupada continued to range from one active and ambitious vision for his youthful Krishna consciousness movement to another. He would think aloud about the volumes of Srimad Bhagavatam ready to be published, if Macmillan would take them, and the boys could act on his behalf. There was so much to do. He wanted to return by October and oversee things personally. So this is Prabhupada in his room, and Prabhupada, there's his danda. He left his danda at the Radha Damodar temple. It was always there. A devotee stole it, if you can call him a devotee. He stole it, and with much pressure, he returned that danda. And you can find that danda and take darshan in Prabhupada's house. It's in the servant's room, in a locked case. Temperatures rose to more than 110 degrees, and Prabhupada and Kirtananda had to stay inside with the doors shut and the overhead fan on. Although Kirtananda could barely perform his duties, Prabhupada found the heat bracing and said that it was restoring his health. Then, after the first week, the monsoon rains began and the heat broke. So if you go to Srila Prabhupada's rooms at Radha Damodar, of course they're not in the same condition as they were when Prabhupada stayed there. But in Prabhupada's sitting room, there's 1 window, only 1 window, and 2 doors, a door on each side. So when the weather became too oppressively hot, they would have to close everything. Otherwise, all the heat would come in. So this is the window, just on the side of the column where Prabhupada would sit. He didn't have any asan or table or anything like that in those days. That was when the devotees came in 1970, and Jamuna and Gurudas, they started to make everything very nice and livable for Prabhupada. On August 10th, Kirtananda rode home again. God is it a hot place. God is it a hot place, right? But at last the rains have started again, and there is some relief from the heat. You can believe me when I say it was hot. But now it is raining a great deal of the time, and that has made the weather quite comfortable for me, but unfortunately not for Swamiji. Prabhupada had come for the heat. He only had a week of it, and then the rain started. Also, I have developed the inevitable case of dysentery, which has been persisting for about a week now. So the time is way past, but there's another book in Prabhupada's library. It's called Blazing Sadhus, because this is August 10th now. And just after this will come Janmashtami. And at Janmashtami time, another disciple came, Achyutananda. And he gives very vivid descriptions of what it was like there at the Radha Damodar temple. So if you want to learn more, then you can read his book also. I'm just mostly concentrating on Prabhupada Lilamrita and the Veda base for the correspondences. All right, so let's see what we're up to. It'll be Julan time now. So we'll hear about that next week. Hare Krishna. Jai.